we're live.
We're not live.
We're not live. But we're here. And that's the important thing. And today, we're going to talk about one of the greatest things in the world.
Is that so?
Something so powerful that it can change the way you think. Something so motivational, it can get you through hard times. Something that feels like it knows you better than you know yourself sometimes. Something that I wouldn't know a world without. It seems like without it, the world would just be a completely different place. And
I'm so excited right now. What is it?
And today,
what is it?
We're going to talk about... What are we going to talk about, Aaron?
I don't know. We were talking a couple weeks ago about... I don't know if we were talking about... I don't know what we were talking about.
We're going to talk about music.
Basically. I remember a couple weeks ago, we were talking about my inability to get started in the garage. I would just sit out there and I would fuck around with my phone, and by this I'm talking about, you know, some of my side stuff that I do on the weekends when I'm not actually making money. But I'll go out and I'll sit on my stool and I'll try to decide, you know, when I need to get started on, and I'll just sit there for fucking hours, literally, just sitting there, not getting anything done, like planning my day, and I can't get moving. And then I realized at one point that, you know, I just went out there and I sat down, and on the days when I went out and I started up the radio, not the radio, I hate fucking radio, but, you know, just got some music going, and music was pumping through my body, that immediately I would get motivated. And it didn't matter what I started on, it would just be something, because I was pumped, and it was, you know, it's usually more uplifting music. But we talked about it and kind of put two and two together, that it seemed like it was the music itself that was, you know, getting me excited and motivated to start working. So
yeah,
I think we were going to talk about the power that music has over our bodies.
Mm-hmm. And just general things about music. Like, it's just weird that it's a thing, you know?
What, the music's a thing?
Yeah, like, it's like, I wonder, like, when, I'm sure, like, you could probably look up, and science probably has some idea of when music started, and I'm sure it probably started with somebody humming or singing or something before we ever had instruments. Maybe tapping, maybe percussion.
So?
I wonder what the first thing was. You think it was like singing, or you think it was like percussion, like somebody like tapping on a stump or something?
I have no idea. I feel like anything that I have ever hummed or tapped is always like, you know, something that already
existed.
Yeah, so it's like it's in my head, and it gets stuck in my head, so I start humming it.
Yeah. So,
but if there was nothing in your mind to begin with,
yeah. Maybe birds. Maybe just listening to birds, imitating birds singing.
Oh, that's fucking brilliant.
Whistling, trying
I
to
have
whistle
thought
or
about that
something.
before, mainly just like the animals around the house, you know, I'll have music going, and I wonder if they're like, what is this noise? It's weird. It's got like, I mean, they don't think in English like we do, but like,
they just
it's
hear
got
sounds.
like rhythmic, and it's like, what is that? It's weird. What are these people doing?
Yeah.
And like when my daughter plays the violin and all that, it's just a freaking thing that we're messing with, and it's making noises. And I think maybe what you're getting at, though, is just the fact that, you know, these different noises put together makes music, and that is kind of a if you never really thought about it, it's very kind of peculiar.
Yeah, it is just like, it's crazy because it's so, like, everybody knows what music is, you know? You can find, like, you know, common day tribes that are in the middle of nowhere, and, like, they have, like, a little flute or something. Like, everybody knows what music is. I don't know if there's anywhere in the world that hasn't been touched by music. It's so weird.
It's all different, though. It's kind of like languages.
Yeah.
It's like the styles, the instruments, everything will change so much. It's why I love Indian music a lot. I think people at work kind of look at me weird and laugh, you know, because they got some Indian girl singing, you can't understand it. It's just these weird, I don't even know what the instruments are called, but they're like stringed instruments, and they just sound.
Yeah.
It's amazing
Yeah,
sounding.
they do like crazy, like kind of twangy, slidey things
Uh-huh.
too.
I don't know if it's just a freshness, but I mean, it's definitely much more beautiful than that. I'll tell you that.
Then what I just did with my
Yeah.
mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
But
Yeah, what are they? I feel like it starts with a K or something like that. One there.
What, the instrument?
Yeah, the one that you're like talking about. It almost looks like a guitar, but they play it like laying flat.
That sounds
or
like
something like that.
That sounds like country.
What?
The country guitar that lays flat. It doesn't even look
Oh,
like a
they,
guitar.
Like, lay it on their lap. And, like,
yeah, it looks like a cross between a keyboard and a guitar. Because it's yeah. That's whatever.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, music around the world changes completely. It's like completely different styles,
but it's like it all has its own like good properties, Like you might not like every kind of music, but it's like I bet you could find something if you were open-minded enough. You could find something in there that you could appreciate about it, Like maybe somebody doesn't like death metal, but they could appreciate the probable difficulty that it would take to play an instrument extremely fast, or whatever, make weird noises with your mouth. But
I listened to death metal for a while.
Yeah, it's cool. It's got a place. Everything has its place. Yeah. Yeah, it's just it seems to music seems to just be a part of us. It seems to kind of have like a strange connection to it, and we have a connection to it as well, and like our mood and our energy seems to like match whatever we're listening to most of the time. Like if we feel like cheering up, we're having a dreary day or something, it's like you can put on music that does that for you. If you're sad and you're having a breakup, you can put on sad love songs
just to fuel it,
just
and make
to
yourself
feel
even worse.
Yeah, it's just like it brings you through the stages. They were talking about, I remember on this this podcast, there was this guy that was on there that was like one of the heads of the AI technology that's going on in the world. Like he was at the forefront of it, and he was discussing different things, and he was saying how like AI isn't just like having a robot that looks like a person. He was saying that there's like different applications and stuff that where like your AI will read you, see what your emotions are, and then come up with a playlist to work you through that. Like it sees that you are like you just had a breakup or something, and it knows, and so it will give you music to tailor to each stage of like the grieving process. Like sadness, anger, acceptance, and then happiness, I think. Or I don't know, I'm not like a psychology expert guy, but he was saying something along those lines. But it like goes through the process, and it will do that for you. It will just change this. It will flow through the playlist in a way that will bring you through all those stages and like get you out of your funk. And it's like that is insane. Like it can recognize how you are feeling, and then it can control how you're feeling. Like that's crazy, and that's has to do with the AI, and also has to do with just the music. The AI is just using it. But yeah, music is so powerful and interesting, and it gets me through a lot. I've been through so much stuff, and for me, like I'm really bad with like dates, like knowing like the dates of different things, like when something happened in my life. But I know when stuff happened in my life based on music.
Right.
Like, oh, this song was playing when that happened. When I was at that stage, when I did my first, whatever. When I worked on my first car, I was listening to this song. Or when I graduated high school, this song was popular. Like, my whole life is dated with music. And it's so interlaced with us.
That's interesting.
And
now I'm thinking about songs in my life too.
Yeah, and it's like one of those things where it's so connected to memory. It's like typically when you hear a song, like an old song that you used to listen to, it'll bring you right back to the place you were at, or it will just simply remind you of what the major thing that was going on in your life when you first heard that song. Like, that's what's interesting. That's one of the things that like I truly love about music. You'll hear a song and you're like, oh, I remember this song. Like, I used to listen to this song with my mom when I was a little kid and we were like driving in the car. You know, it was like my first memories of this song was then. Or, you know, oh, like this song, like I remember I was dating that person. Or, oh, like me and my best friends were like going out for his birthday and like that song came. I remember that moment. Like, it's like music is like a time machine.
It's definitely very connected to emotion and memory. It's interesting because I'm thinking about memories now when you said that. And like Depeche Mode is my favorite band and always has been. And I was actually thinking about it a couple days ago. It's like, why do I like them so much? So much, because I like starting to listen to certain songs and they're good, but I'm listening to it. I'm like, what is it exactly that I like so much about these people that have made them continually my favorite band throughout my entire life? And that's basically just it. It's just, you hear the songs and I go back to like, I used to, you know, when you're a kid and life is good and there's no stress and you know things are going well and you're happy and stuff like that, and that's the music that was on. And, you know, driving around town with my brother when he first got his license and stuff like that. I think he's kind of what got me into Depeche Mode to begin with. And those were just really fun, memorable times, you know, just driving around and listening to this music. And so it's not so much the music itself, but yeah, it's the organization of those notes that are so familiar.
Everything that's connected to it.
It's been known for a while that music affects emotions and memories and stuff like that too. Because again, last night I was thinking about it. There was a movie playing, and I'm a super emotional guy, and I'm proud of it. So fuck you. But I'll watch movies, and I will cry. I will cry. It's like sometimes I'll just tear up, but I mean, there's some times where I will cry, and almost like so hard where I'm like making noises and stuff like that.
Wow.
But shut up.
Let it out. God damn.
But, well, I think it was last night or the night before we were watching the movie, and it was a really sad part, and here we go, you know, the eyes are starting to well up, and the movie's starting to get blurry because I can't see through my tears and stuff like that. I'm like, why is it, and they got the sad music playing, and then I started, you know, overthinking everything. I was like, is this part really sad? Or is like the music kind of pushing you? And that's why the music is there anyways. That's why the director and all these people that put the movies together, they put that music there.
Yeah, they're suspenseful and sad
and it just
powerful.
helps push your emotions and guide your emotions where the directors want it to be. So we're kind of like puppets. It's kind of weird if you think about it that way, but it's amazing what music will do to your actual emotion.
Yeah, it's like why like a lot of people I know, like back in whenever it was the 70s or whatever, people like went on like radio strikes and stuff because they didn't want to listen to the music that the government decided they could listen to, or whoever decided for them, you know, because they felt that it was like a way of controlling people. You know, you control the food they eat, the music they listen to, and you control how they act. And it's so that's kind of interesting. I had a guitar teacher way back in the day, like when I was like in high school and just after high school, and he was kind of a typical kind of like hippie dude, guitar player, like in the modern day now, you know, he's like all cleaned up, but he talked about, you know, times in the 60s and 70s, and he said that he went on a radio strike for like 4 or 5 years or something during that, where he didn't watch TV or listen to radio for like 4 or 5 years. I'm like, damn, that is some crazy shit. He just like would like listen to records or whatever, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But like, damn, just wouldn't watch TV. That's
You said a strike. Like, was there
pretty crazy. Like
a reason, or just
because it was because of that, because he didn't want to listen to or watch what they were showing him. Like, I don't know if he had like a big group of people that was with him, or if it was just him. But yeah, he said I don't know. Maybe that was like a popular thing back then. Maybe a lot of people did that. But yeah, he just said that he didn't want to listen to the crap that they were playing for him. Like, they chose what he got to listen to on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't want to be in that mood.
The what?
So I don't want to be in that mood. I don't want to listen to that.
Exactly.
You can't make me feel a certain way, Dick.
Yeah, music is so strange. It's a strange thing. And it's something that I think a lot of people we enjoy it, but we don't stop and like think about it. And that's just kind of like what we did, before, when the whole reason that we decided to talk about this is because I think it's nice to just like take the time out and like hyper focus on something and discuss it a little bit. I don't think it's good to just go about things because we always have, or because it's just something that's there. It's good to like stop and look at the details every once in a while, check in on it, see how it's doing. It's like, I remember growing up in my mom's bathroom, she always had this like picture. It was like a crochet thing or something that she did, or whatever it's called, where you like stitch the thread onto the little palette, the little canvas palette, and it's like a picture that gets made up and it had like some words on it. Mm-hmm. And I saw that thing literally my whole life. Like, she had that in it. She might still have that in there, I don't know. But it got to the point where one day when I was, I don't know, maybe middle school or high school, I was looking at it and I decided to really look at it. And I was like, it's like when you see something so often, you almost stop seeing it. Mm-hmm. It's like that thing was always there. And so I had seen it. I'd seen it a bunch of times. But it's like I never really took the time to stop and look at it thoroughly. And so like one day I was just peeing or whatever, and I'm just staring at this thing, and I'm like, that's a strange little picture. Like, it's just weird, whatever it was. And I kind of thought about it then. I was like, that's weird. Like, I've seen this a million times, but this time I looked at it, and there's like a difference. And it's funny how things like that can just go in our life. You have a picture or whatever it is in your life. You see it so much that it almost doesn't exist anymore. It's just not there because it's just part of your surroundings, and you don't need to look at it anymore. It's part of the reticular activating system, right?
Kind of.
It's part of it. Like what you talked about, like when you look at a doorknob, like you're not inspecting every doorknob. It's just a doorknob.
It seems more like it's more along the lines of desensitization.
Yeah.
Which I certainly don't want to change the topic of this too much, but that's my biggest argument for the statement, you can do anything you set your mind to. Uh-huh. That's why I'm so fueled on that right now, and I feel like I push it a lot because it's that thing that gets said so often that
loses its value.
Exactly. Now it's just that picture on the wall. People say it, and it's the obviousness of the statement goes away, and then it just turns into some magical thing that only famous people say.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's all those things that just happen so often, so frequently that you're no longer actually listening to it. You're no longer actually looking at it. It's just there. And so it's good to. I do that a lot with sayings. You ever do that? Mm-hmm. Somebody says a weird saying in a sentence, and then it's like, I can't really think of an example right now, unfortunately. But then you're like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
You think about the words individually.
Like the words are really strange.
What? And you start to think about it, and it's like, wait, these words are so weird that it must have come from, back in the day. Like built like a shit brick house. What the fuck is that? People say,
built like a brick.
Man, that dude's sure okay.
Built like a brick shit house.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I hear it multiple ways as well.
It's built like a brick shit house because old shit houses, like old outhouses, were built out of brick, so they were just like super like sturdy, stout. So
like tornado would come by and their house would be gone.
Yeah,
but they still have their shit house.
Yeah, so like it just means like the dude's just fucking tough and like muscly and.
See, I mean, that's the thing, though, is this stuff, like makes sense, and you hear it so often that there's no question what it means.
Yeah.
But if you actually get down and you really think about the words and how they're formed, it's like, what? And there's some that man, there's some that still don't make sense, and it's almost worse if you think about it too much. Like one of the things was, you got your work cut out for you. Mm-hmm. I used to always use it backwards, and it still to this day it makes more sense the way I thought it meant. Like, for example, I got a lot of shit to do today. I gotta grind down all these welds, and I gotta cut out all these pieces and whatever, and I got my work cut out for you. That sounds totally backwards, and what I always thought it meant was fuck, I can't think of an example. Here we go. Basically, it was the opposite. You got all this stuff to do, but I gotta water the lawn, but it rained, and I gotta shovel all the dirt out of my driveway, but we just had that flood, and it just pushed it all out. I got all my work cut out for me.
Oh, like the work got cut out, so you don't have to do it anymore. Oh, I think I've never looked at it. It's fun to look up some of those like old sayings sometimes, but I think that like the way when you were talking about it, the way that I thought about it when I broke it down in my head was like. You're building, say you're like building like a bag, like you have all of your work like cut out of the material, but now you have the work to do. So like you have your work cut out for you, like you have it started, but you have a lot of work that you have to do because like you started
organized
the process.
And prepared.
Yeah. So it's like your work's cut out for you. Now get to working. But yeah, I don't know if that's what it means, but that's kind of how I just helps. That's kind of how I just thought about it. It's like one of those things where it's like where we know what the person's saying, like we know the context of it, but we don't know the actual meaning. Like when I heard somebody talking about brass tacks. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, like
let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's get down to brass tacks. And like a lot of people think that it's tax, like the government is taxing you, but it's like literally like the brass tacks like that are on like a chair.
Is that what it is?
I think so. They were talking about
that's
it.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure.
I always thought it was brass tacks, like thumbtacks, but
yeah.
I never understood. And that's one of those things. You hear it, you know what it means.
Yeah.
You don't need to question.
I would double check that one because I don't know for sure, but it was like a discussion between whether it's actual like getting taxed or if it's like an actual brass tack.
It's brass. I mean, yeah, I could be wrong, but I mean it's brass tacks, not just tax, and that actually makes a little more sense if you think about it. Maybe what is that? Getting down to details.
Yeah, I guess so. Getting down to the bare facts or something. I don't know. Some of the meanings like I don't know like what you're actually saying. I just know how it's used sometimes. But yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
There was one that was super confusing. I tried looking it up, and I can't remember exactly what the saying. It was something with, it was in one foul swoop. That saying, because I had a friend that they were saying it wrong, and.
Was it fail swoop? Because I think that's how I've said it in the past.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think that's what they said. They might have said one fail swoop, and I was like, "What? What do you mean? I mean, you mean one foul swoop?" And then it was the discussion when I looked it up. It was kind of confusing. I think there was like two ways. I feel like at the end of it, you could say it either way, but the more traditional way is foul swoop. Mm-hmm. And it had something to do with a bird, fowl, like a bird,
right,
like swooping down or something like that. It was a very confusing.
Are they capable of picking up multiple things? Because I feel like that's how that saying is used.
Yeah, I mean they got 2 feet.
Almost like similar to two birds with one stone. Fuck. There we go. There's another one.
Two birds with one stone.
Yeah, where is that? What is that all about? I mean, that makes perfect sense too. But I mean, who was the first person to say it? And why did it?
Because you got two birds and you smash them with one throw of a stone. You know, say you have two birds and they're right next to each other, and you throw a rock and it hits them both in the head.
It's definitely one of those that makes more sense
two
immediately.
Birds with one
stone. The
bird,
origin is
bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
You explained that one to me before.
Yeah, that one makes sense. For those of you that don't know, I had a real life lesson on a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush from this old business guy that I was talking to one day. He was like a neighbor friend, and he didn't say that first, but he broke it down to me basically before. He said he needed help with something, and he was like, here, I got money. He's like, you want the money now or after you do it? And I was like, I was kind of young. I think I was like 18 or whatever, and I was kind of like, I'm like, I don't, it doesn't matter. Like I know you'll pay me whenever. Like it doesn't matter. I'm not worried about it. And he was like, no, that's the wrong answer. He's like, take the money, and I took it, and he said, listen. He said, you ever heard the saying, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you know what that means? And I was like, no. And he's like, it means that when the money is offered to you, you take the money because it might not be there tomorrow. And it's basically saying that one bird in the hand, something that you actually have, is worth double of what you might have. So even though there might be two birds in that bush over there, the one that you already have is worth more. Right. So that's what the saying is. Whether people agree with that or not, risk taking, whatever.
I like it.
So, but yeah, so that was that one.
It's one of those things that if it agrees with you, it's right.
Yeah.
At least it's right for you.
It was cool. I liked that one. Yeah. A while back when we were talking about music, you had said that the reason that you liked Depeche Mode so much was partly because of your brother listening to it in the car when you first started driving or he first started driving, whatever. Uh-huh. And it made me think about something. Have you ever had an experience where something like that, so say like, he was into Depeche Mode a little bit, mm-hmm. You like grasped onto Depeche Mode, you love them, they're now still one of your favorite things. Have you ever had something like that in your life where when you check back with the person that inspired you, that with something that like, had played a huge part in your life, mm-hmm. they were like not that into it, like in reality?
That's a perfect example right there.
Yeah.
It's like soul crushing too.
Yeah, it's weird, right? It's like, like this, because it's like partially one of the reasons that you like something in some situations is because you kind of look up to that person and you're like, oh, they like it, and so it like inspires you to like it.
Right.
And yeah, like I have almost that exact same thing with Sublime. One of the first CDs that I ever got in my life was the Sublime like self-named album, and I got it from my older sister. She's 7 years older than me. She was like, I don't know if she was in like middle school or high school or whatever, but she like handed it down to me. She didn't listen to it anymore. And I like grasped onto it. It's still one of my favorite CDs because it was one of the first physical CDs that I actually had that was mine. So it was kind of like my first time having my own music. And I would listen to it on my Walkman CD player and whatever, and I still have it somewhere. And it's like, yeah, like that album for me was just like huge because it had all these different meanings. But like today, like my sister doesn't really ever listen to Sublime. She was never really a huge Sublime fan. She liked a couple songs from the album because they were big in the 90s, but like she's nowhere near into Sublime as much as I am. But it's just funny because like the reason that I got into it because like I looked up to her and like that was a thing. Like I always wanted to be like as cool as my older sister and like. Right. So it's just funny how like stuff like that like works out.
Like I said, it's soul crushing though. I don't even think it's funny. It's like, wow, you like molded this part of me that is so much a huge part of me, and then I like talk to you about it, and it's like, yeah. It's like, oh, why?
Yeah, I think that when you like for me, because I think I kind of used to feel like that too, but I think once you like fully understand like the process of it, like why it happened, like it's just kind of funny. It's not really that bad, because like I know people that say you're like a little bit interested in something, like for example, your friend that showed interest in photography, you showed him about photography, and then he went on to make super cool videos. And you're like, fuck, like I want to make super cool videos too, but you know, time, whatever, you like don't have the time right now doing other stuff. He just went fully all in on that, and now he's like fucking crushing it, making cool videos. And it's like one of those things where it's like you're kind of always going to be the guy that inspired him, even though you don't do it as much as he does now. You know, it's just interesting how that like works. Like you can be inspired by somebody and then quickly go past the point that they're at for whatever reason, just because like you just took the passion and you took that knowledge that they had and you just ran with passion with it.
There must be an ego thing. Let's change the conversation to ego. Not really, but it's definitely something I need to work on, because now that you're saying this, I'm actually thinking of all these different things. Like there's a whole bunch of them. It's like actual photography. My best friend, you know, I taught him everything I knew. He was interested in, you know, photography and wanted to learn more. So I taught him. He got a camera. I taught him how to do stuff. I ended up leaving town and he became a fucking wedding photographer and was really good and surpassed everything that I ever was. And he ended up getting me a job when I came back to town as a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
But he's always been better than me, and my ego's like, fuck, I feel so worthless. And then we got that guy, a very similar thing. He ended up doing something else entirely, but it was so much better. And then my daughter, I used to play violin in high school, and I was pretty good. You know, I made it to advanced orchestra or whatever. And I was so happy when she picked up the violin, you know, in school. I was like, wow, you know, you don't have to do that. Don't do it because I did it. She's like, no, I'm really interested in it. And so she, you know, she started playing the violin, and, you know, I would help her with her homework and stuff like that, her practicing. And then now she's like so much better than I ever was. I'm like, fuck, I am such a piece of shit. And she like asked me for help, and it's like, I don't know what you're doing. You are so far ahead of where I was.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I'm saying it's an ego thing, is because I let it hurt me. And,
Yeah,
you know, not like bad, but I mean, it's
yeah, just kind of
it
like
messes
hurt your
with me a
feelings
little bit. Yeah, it's like,
yeah, well,
it's almost like you want them to not be as good.
Yeah, like you want them
which
to
is
always
really
look up
shitty.
to you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's one of those things where you gotta flip it. You gotta look at it like, look, I inspired them to do what they're doing, and I want them to use me as a stepping stone to be better than I ever was. You know, it's like fathers want better for their children than they had, you know? So it's like, it's important, but it's like also important that you were there. You are a huge piece of that. You were a piece of leverage. You were a springboard to spring them into it. If they had to do it without you, they probably could still have done it, but it would have been a much slower process. That's why, like, as we like evolve as humans, and each generation, like, we should be looking to, like, you know, do everything better for the next generation, you know, whatever, from, you know, leaving the environment cleaner to teaching them our trades so that they know things. You know, I think that if I had a child that started wrestling, like I wrestled in high school, and I think that if I was able to show them what I knew, because it's kind of like the whole hindsight thing. It's like hindsight's 20/20, but you can't affect yourself, but you can affect others. So I can take everything that I learned, all the mistakes that I made, and everything that I learned, and I can teach that to them right away from a young point. So that the point that they're starting from is where I ended, basically. So they're already ahead of the game. And so that's important. And I saw like a huge difference with, I had friends where their parents had wrestled, and there's a clear difference in the skill level because their parents knew how to talk to them about certain things, knew what advice to give them, knew how to form their mindset at a young age to become a winner because they had seen it. They knew what it took to be a winner and stuff like that. And Yeah. So I think you just have to look at it as a good thing, and you are an important piece of the puzzle. You know, as Wim Hof says, no ego, we go. He's a funny guy. I like him.
That's a brilliant thought, though.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, leaving the podcast enlightened. But yeah, I guess it's kind of interesting. I guess that's what makes humans as amazing as we are, so advanced. If we had to invent the television, from scratch, we'd never get anywhere as far as technology goes. But since somebody already has, and we can learn, how to build a television, we can now spend all the rest of our time improving it and making it better.
Yeah.
And then making the next one better. And then that person dies, and the next person, learns all your advancements, and then they can make it better even still. So it's a good point. So
yeah,
fuck ego, man.
It's like
it doesn't do anything but cause pain. Yeah. Slow other things down.
It's funny that whole like building a TV thing reminds me of that Joe Rogan bit where he's talking about that, how like people aren't generally that smart. He's like, there's just a couple really smart people, and the rest of us are just fucking dumb. Like, I'm using this microphone, I don't know how it works. He's like, you think that you're smart? He's like, I'll tell you what, if you think that you're smart, I'll put you on an island with a hatchet. How long before you can send me an email? And it's like, fuck, like, yeah, that is true. Like, we all just stand on the shoulders of giants because there's a couple people that know how this shit works.
All right.
And all of us other common folk are just out fucking them, as he says. He's like, we're gonna go extinct. All the smart ones are busy working on improving stuff, and then all the dumb ones are just out here having sex with each other, breeding.
Yeah, but then you got to think about the whole, the teamwork thing. It's everybody as a whole, which is what makes society work. Because they can build a computer, but they're going to fucking starve because they can't grow corn and,
fix cars.
Yeah, exactly.
They can make the car, they just don't know how to fix it. Damn engineers.
So it's basically humans as a whole, like one giant entity working together. How do we get there from music?
Well, we go all over the place here.
Indeed.
There's no boundaries on this podcast.
Something I read recently about music was linking to not only emotions, it was talking about our circadian rhythm and stuff like that, which is, your states of awakeness and sleep and stuff like that throughout the day. And this person was talking about using music to, help your body go into those different states. And so you can actually, smell is another one of those things that's super closely related to our bodies and how we feel and stuff like that. And so that in order to get a better sleep at night, you can dim the lights and make sure they're warm lights and put on some music, and you can train your body. It may not do anything right away, but if you have like a certain, like song or something like that you put on just before you go to bed, and you do that every night, and then you dim those lights so that they're warm lights and stuff like that, you can actually train your body to start responding to this stuff.
Yeah, that
and
sounds...
so, and you smell too, because smell is one of those things that's more closely related to our bodies than even music. But you have this certain smell, and you just pick a smell. It can be anything. It can be burning rubber. It doesn't fucking matter. But if you have that smell every night before you wind down and go to sleep, it'll get to the point where somebody does a burnout in front of your work and you get fucking sleepy.
Yeah, that's like along the lines of like classical conditioning. It's like what we do like with dogs, like in dog training. You can cue them, you can set them up for what you're about to do, with words or with equipment or whatever. It's like, every time you put the harness on, they get to go bite the bad guy. So you pull that harness out, they see it, they're fucking fired up.
Right.
You know, and it's almost, it's one of those things where it becomes so strong that if you're not doing bite work, you don't touch the harness. Like if you pull it out.
I was just going to ask that. Is that
yeah,
the only time that's used?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. There's all kinds of different dog training, but for what we do, like when we put the harness on them, it's for agitation work. You know, they're getting to bite something. So,
right,
and it's their favorite thing. Like dogs love to bite stuff. So, if you go to do that, you know, it's a cue to the dogs. The bite suit that I put on the scratch pants, the stick, if they hear the whip crack. Like all of these things that they associate with doing the bite work triggers them. And so if you're not planning on doing the bite work, don't touch the suit, don't touch the harness, because they're going to get fired up like crazy, and it's hard to bottle that back up. Like they're going to be very upset with you.
Right.
And yeah, it's just like for, you know, the average person, when they grab the leash, the dog knows that they're going to go on a walk, and so the dog gets super excited. Yep. Same thing. Just classical and operant conditioning.
I was thinking of moving where our leash is at, because unfortunately it's right by the front door, and it made sense when we put it in there. Well, no, I mean, there's other stuff in there. You know, like we grab a jacket or something like that, and I feel so bad, you know, because you go over to the closet, and it's not even the leash anymore. Now it's the closet. Yeah. When you go open the door to the closet, she gets super excited. Oh my God, we're going outside. And it's like, I'm sorry, sweetie, we're just grabbing our jackets. We're going out to dinner.
Leaving you here alone.
You can't go to the Outback.
Yeah, Cutter gets super stoked when I grab my keys and he's not in his kennel. Because if I put him in his kennel first and then I grab my keys, like obviously he knows he's in his kennel, he's not going anywhere. But if I like have to just grab something out of my truck real quick and I'm home, and he's just out running around hanging out with us, and I grab my keys and I go walking to the door and I didn't put him in his kennel, he runs to the door and he's sniffing and he's jumping, and I'm like, no, stay, I'm just grabbing something, like stop, like stay here, you know, like sometimes like you can't help it, like they get cued on to stuff. But yeah, they're super intelligent, and they cue onto things like that very quickly, and they understand it. But humans are the exact same way. You know, you go to, you know, you try this with your kids. You know, you go to this one restaurant, and every time you go to this one restaurant, they get ice cream afterwards. And then one time you go to the restaurant and you don't order ice cream, the kids are going to freak out because they know how this works. Every time we come to this restaurant, we get ice cream. But yeah, you can do it on yourself. And like, I've heard psychologists talk about a lot of like sexual things are like that too. You know, certain smells. And I've heard people can use that as kind of a tool too to arouse themselves, like before, almost like a different way. Instead of like Viagra, you know, you can actually trick yourself because you can like, if you're like masturbating or something and you put like a certain smell on and you have that, when you just smell that smell, when you're not doing it, it will trigger the physical response. And so if you're trying to, you know, whatever the problem is, if you got some ED or something, you try that out. And then when you go to make love to your woman or your man or whatever, you put the smell on and you smell it, or music or whatever it is that we associate it with. It can help trigger that physical response and get you in the zone. Hashtag sex tips from the Dream Crushers.
Well, it's not even just sex tips though. I'm fascinated by it. I think this all kind of started with, you've heard of Pavlov's dogs, right? It's basically exactly what you were just talking about.
Yeah, that's where it all stems from.
This guy, I can't even give you a time frame because I'm not that good with history, but I have, you know, read about it a little bit. Way ago?
It was a while ago.
It was way ago.
That was a combination of a ways back and a while ago. Ways ago.
He was studying dogs and their behavior and stuff like that, and learned that if he rang the bell and fed the dogs constantly and conditioned them, that eventually they would respond the same way when they got food as they would, you know, I think I said that wrong. When he rings the bell and didn't give them food, they would still salivate and they would do all this stuff, you know, and get excited about getting fed. And their minds linked the sound of the bell to food, which is actually what we do in our house. I don't know if I've talked to you about that with our cats.
Oh, yeah.
It was an attempt, which did not work, by the way. It was an attempt to get our most feisty cats that they can kind of sense, the time of day a little bit, and get super excited. Like we have Shadow, a little black cat. She's so fucking annoying. We feed them, every day around like 5:30. And so, right around 4:30, 5, she gets excited and is meowing, and she's like knocking stuff off of our tables and stuff like that, and it's just agitating little cat. And we thought maybe, we could get them conditioned by setting an alarm, a food alarm. Since we feed them at the same time every day anyways, we'll just set the alarm. And maybe, she won't get excited until she hears the alarm, but it does not work that way with animals. She'll still get excited. However, they do respond even more when the alarm goes off. It's hilarious because we have a whole household full of animals. We got 4 cats and a dog. And that alarm will go off, and all the animals will just scatter and run around and start jumping over each other. It's fascinating to watch when the alarm goes off.
That's awesome.
So there's that. But yeah, you're talking about the sexuality part of it. It's everything. I would like to, challenge people to try that with stuff. I mean, do exactly what you said. Set up things if there's something that you want to motivate yourself to do, whether it's fucking, whether it's, doing chores and stuff like that. Condition yourself, with these certain things. Pick these smells. They have those like incense machines. Have you seen those?
Essential oil things.
Yeah, you can choose a scent and like schedule this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Associate it.
Pick a certain smell and you only use it when you're doing chores. And that would probably help, I bet, if you're like me and you hate cleaning, but I'm one of those people that, once I start cleaning, I kind of get into it and I keep going. But you can get yourself in that mode if you like pick, sandalwood. Sandalwood is my chore smell, and death metal is going to be my music, and whatever, and all the lights on all at once everywhere in the house. That's going to be my cleaning, and you just do that for so long, and it's not a quick thing. It's going to take time to get conditioned to that. But once you get to a certain point, when you first, take a whiff of that sandalwood out of the oil bottle or whatever, you're already going to start getting motivated to basically like the dog on the leash. You know what's coming, you get pumped up and get ready to go. Try it.
Yeah.
With sexy time, like Kyle said. Do
Get
that.
yourself worked up.
That and sleep. That was the most fascinating. He was actually talking about, who am I talking about, by the way? Why can't I think of his name? Aubrey Marcus. Aubrey Marcus was talking about the circadian rhythm thing and getting your body into the sleep state, or at least getting prepared for it. And so before you get into bed, you go in and you fire up the lavender smell and you get the lights at the right level that you want it to be, and you put on that sleepy time music, and that way you can get your body to start shutting down even before you get to sleep. And that's how you get a much more healthy, solid, restful sleep, is preparing for sleep. So go experience with that stuff.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I remember experiencing that with, like the whole association thing, like before I ever heard of Pavlov's dogs, before I ever heard of that and the whole conditioning thing, was when I was in school to become a mechanic. Right next to the school was a Panda Express, and so when I was going to school full time, I would have like an hour break in between like a couple of my classes, and so I would always just have to run down and get some Panda Express. So I'd be in class, go to Panda Express, eat Panda Express, come back to class, working on cars, whatever. I realized that over time, after doing that for a while, that any time I would eat Panda Express outside of that situation, I would get the urge to work on my car. And any time, and it worked both ways, anytime I would be working on my car at home, I'd be like, oh man, I'm hungry. I'm like, oh, Panda Express sounds good. And like, it took me a while. I didn't even think about it. And then it took me a while, and I was like, oh. I'm like, I bet that's because I ate Panda every time when I was going to school. working on cars every day, and then I would eat Panda, and it was like the two became associated,
Right.
working on cars and eating Panda, and it was just funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was like a self-discovery, like, whoa, it's so weird.
I bet it happens a lot too when you're not even thinking. Well, that's basically what you're talking about. It's not even thinking about it, not doing it on purpose. But, like, for example, I would tell people that, coffee doesn't wake me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only just now thinking about it, but it's probably because I drink coffee all the time. And I get, like, jittery. But, I mean, I love coffee so much that I would literally drink coffee before going to bed. And it would not affect my sleep.
Yeah.
At least, not at a level where I can notice. I wouldn't have a problem falling asleep or staying asleep like that. My actual restful sleep might be affected, I'm sure, but because of the caffeine. But it wouldn't make me so I couldn't sleep, and in the morning it wouldn't help me wake up like other people. Other people are like, I can't wake up without coffee.
Yeah.
And that may be conditioning as well.
Mm.
I mean, in part, yes, it's the caffeine. It's an upper, it's doing things to your body.
But after you get used to it, the caffeine isn't really doing anything anymore.
Exactly. But you still have to have that coffee in the morning.
Yeah, it's like the routine.
Or your day is fucking ruined.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I haven't had my coffee.
Yeah, people.
And so that's the conditioning that you're doing to yourself.
Crazy about their coffee.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. Well, music. Interesting.
Conditioning. Interestinger.
Yeah, we painted the field on this one. We talked about sayings, talked about music, talked about conditioning.
Sex.
So a little bit of sex in there. A little bit of that. Cess.
Let's go have sex.
Who?
No, not with each other.
Oh.
Let's just go. Let's go our separate ways.
Into the world.
Yes. Let's go out.
Project ourselves into the universe. Well, all right. Hope you guys enjoyed that mess. And I hope that you guys enjoy the audio clips without the video still. I hope that you care about the words we say and not just our awesome video skills.
Our faces.
Yes.
They still get to see our faces.
It's true.
Anyhow.
All right, guys.
Until next week. Bye.
Stay tuned. Stay woke.
Ooh, go crush your dreams.
Go crush your dreams. Yay.